So Chris, you've got a huge company, 34,000 employees, $33 billion market cap, 32,000 megawatts of generation, and 20,000 megawatts of that is nuclear, spread across a far-flung empire. Sounds like a pretty easy job to me.
Yeah, it keeps you busy. It keeps you out of trouble. The company is unique. There were many more competitive integrated utility energy companies about a decade ago. But as the markets changed and asset classes have changed, companies have consolidated or companies have gotten out of the competitive generating business. Us being the largest retail wholesale provider on that side of the business and having the opportunity to do that with the lowest carbon emitting fleet in the country gives us a unique position to deliver what the customer wants. On the other side of the business, which is totally walled off, we have the energy delivery and natural gas delivery utilities. The 6 utilities, over 10 million customers. It allows us the opportunity to share best practices, to figure out how to do it better, more efficiently, more effectively, and work to gain a culture of teaming. When there's a bad storm that blows into DC, it's not just PHI that can come to the rescue. It's PECO, it's ComEd, it's BGE, and we can affect the repairs or support the customers with much more force.
So you've been doing some really innovative things in those utilities, serving customers directly. You've had smart meter deployments across a whole lot of your territory, including a pretty significant one right there in Chicago with ComEd. And it was, I think it was $1 billion, or it was a significant amount of money making that investment over a number of years. What's the benefit of that beyond simply making the data acquisition process more efficient and not having to have thousands of people running around reading meters and risk being bitten by dogs and that sort of thing? I mean, what's the real value there?
Yeah, that dog bite is the #1 safety issue a utility has on the meter readers. But we have 9 million meter readers installed on our system now. There's 1 million customers that aren't covered, and we're working on the tariffs to complete that across the system. But those meters have given us great insight. If you can go back a couple of years ago, we didn't know your power was out until you picked up the phone to tell us. We didn't know the actual voltages on the line. It was calculated, so we're pumping and supporting voltages off of a calculation versus actual. And think about the energy efficiency that you can get when you actually know the voltage. Just PECO alone, since they've completed their smart meter project, they have been able to do connects or disconnects on meters 1 million. We saved 230,000 truck rolls. You think about the productivity and the improvement. The mantra for us in many of the EEI's companies is reliable, clean, but affordable. Whatever we do, we have to keep those in mind. So, getting the customer efficiency out of it is really critical.
And you mentioned best practices among the various utilities. How do you foster those conversations? So, for example, do you have the folks from ComEd and BG&E and PECO actually, physically together on occasion or on the phone? Or how do you make sure that, for example, BG&E has a really effective program with residential customers where over 50% of them have given the utility their email address? Imagine that many people willing to voluntarily give the information to the utility for a demand response program. How do you take those best practices and really promulgate them through the organization?
So at the beginning of Exelon, which was the merger of PECO and ComEd back in 2000, what we determined with that large nuclear fleet is we needed to do business the same way. Safety, affordability, reliability was all critical. So we came up with an organization design of who has governance, who has oversight, who supports, who performs, and our plants operate exactly the same. You can have technology differences, but the approach to doing business, your safety tag out programs, your work management programs, your project management programs. So when we had 2 utilities, ComEd and PECO, that wasn't big enough to really drive the culture and the infrastructure for best practice sharing. That was more of, if you were in Illinois, I didn't invent it, so I'm not going to do it the Philadelphia way. It's just that culture comes in. And when we brought BGE in back 5 years ago, we looked at an organization over it, a very efficient organization called Exelon Utilities. And we used subject matter experts to pull together the subject matter experts at each utility and start sharing the best practices, operational practices, safety practices, customer care and billing practices. And that's allowed us to really drive all the utilities, the historical Exelon utilities, to top quartile, in some case, top decile customer service and reliability numbers. Bringing PHI in has given us even more of an opportunity with ACE, Delmarva, and PEPCO, getting the subject matter experts together. We brought BGE from probably one of the lowest operating in its peer group in 5 years to top quartile in the top 2 or 3 in its peer group. So we know it works when you get the culture right. People are willing to change what they've done their whole life to adapt to a new, better process. Some of the programs, like the BGE program, is tailored to that regulatory area. It's been very successful. I think there was $48 million rebated last year to the customers that were able to cut their peak. And 90% of those that signed up for it participated in it. So it's a great program. It works well. We've had other programs where we manage air conditioners. And when the software doesn't work and the air conditioner stays off too long, you see some people drop out of those programs. So we have some lessons learned there. But ComEd has a similar program, but it's tailored to the state. You do share the concepts and figure out what you can do in your regulatory jurisdiction to get it done for the customer.
So working towards intentional design.
Right.
So we're living in a world now that the whole premise of this entire conference has been around design in a world where everything is rapidly changing. We often hear the phrase future-proofing. How do you lean into the future and create it yourselves so that you're not responding to, I mean, obviously there are certain things we always have to respond to, but how do you design for and create your own future as much as possible? Let's start with, for example, the investments you're making with Constellation's group there, where you're investing in different startups. What's the reasoning behind that, and then how do you take advantage of the learnings from those investments?
Yeah, as you've talked about over the last couple of days, technology is changing in our sector faster than ever before. Digitizing, starting with the smart meters and the controls we have on the grid, is changing more than before. Customers' desire to control their own energy management and in some places have DER have required us to continue to change. The number one thing before you get to some of the investments and some of the things that we've been doing is try to really work on the culture and the people. The number one thing for us to adapt to the future, to create our path forward, is have the right people, the right knowledge, and an organization that constantly is inquisitive and wants to learn. When I came into this job 5 years ago, became the CEO after we merged with Constellation, had this new great Constellation platform that matched the load to gen, had the utilities, things were going in the right direction, and all of a sudden the bottom fell out of the natural gas market. And our margins got crushed. So within the first 6 months, I had to go into the board and say, just want to let you know that these market forwards will no longer support the dividend that you've approved. We've got to cut the dividend. We've got to we've cut over $2 billion worth of projects. We shut a lot of things down, really tightened the belt. And that was a critical learning. We did not see that coming. Mm-hmm. And we were too comfortable in the market and the model in the customer base. So at that point, we really started to look at anybody that said disruptive technology had to get rid of that word. It's enabling technology. The business is going to change, and you can lead, you might be able to follow, but you're probably going to get left behind. So we got into the mode of really focusing on innovation, the culture of innovation. We have a couple ways that we do it and to continue to learn. One is a massive engagement of all employees. In a couple months, we'll have an innovation fair in Washington that will have over 2,000 of the 10,000 employees, or 34,000 employees come in, and they'll be showing their projects on innovation, digitizing. It's everything from the digital worker or to GIS systems and how we can better affect productivity. One app that's been developed in this program is where a utility person today can go out and take a picture of a damaged pole or wire or transformer, and it's automatically sent into the work management system with its actual location and its ID number, just based off using the global positioning. We're going to have that for the customer very soon, where a customer can have the app and say, something's wrong there, send it in, let's get it fixed. But you know, there's so many other technologies and startups. So we have this group called Constellation Technology Venture Group, where we're putting about $30 million a year of seed money into startups that have promising technology. Not every one of them is successful, and we're okay with that. It's hard to tell a group that's been formed on operational excellence that every once in a while it's okay to fail. So that you first have to get over. And that way, to do that better, we have to hold the purse and not you know, and make the decisions on the investments. But we've had some really successful partnerships with that. ChargePoint, and why ChargePoint?
That's the EV charging network.
Yeah, the EV charging network. Well, we're an electric company. We surely would like a lot more electric cars on the road. And as an energy business, the more that we can show we're using electric cars, the better we can demonstrate what we're doing for the environment. So getting ChargePoint out and starting to sell it either through Constellation with our industrial commercial partners, but also the utilities looking at how can they spread that further in their footprint. Proterra bus company. Electric bus company. Yeah, there's a theme here.
Yeah.
The electric bus company working to commercialize those buses and watching them roll out in our service territories. There's investments that we can make to support the use of those. Do we buy the batteries and lease everything to municipalities? How does this work? But things like that have been very successful, and they fit into our overall Exelon strategy on innovation.
And when I was there were 15,000 megawatts of C&I customers, let alone residential competitive supplied customers, all over. It was 2/3 of the Fortune 100 or something. This is 2012, and I know those numbers have stayed solid. Can you take those customers, some of them, and integrate the new technologies with them and find out, oh, what's working, how does this feel to customers, that sort of thing? So actually take advantage of the fact you have this whole ecosystem of consumers out there and see what's going on. How does that look?
Yes, so we have in the retail mostly C&I, but some residential, well over 100 gigawatts now. We're producing and selling around 200 gigawatts. Some of that's wholesale and bigger portion C&I. So what we've done with the Constellation organization is we have the technology experts in technology ventures or within the different customer-facing products that work with the sales folks, teach the sales folks, the customer-facing individuals on what the potential is. Is it energy efficiency? Do they want to have, on a C&I level, we don't do residential, do they want to have solar? Looking at energy management systems that we can sell, putting in charging stations at different factories and locations. So, you know, on our national accounts, it works really well. On the local larger accounts, it works well. And we do it for a couple reasons. One is we need to be relevant to our customer. If we're not going to come in and offer new ideas that helps improve their performance, somebody else is going to do it. The other thing is when we create that relevance with the customer, it's a stronger bond. So the next time they're signing up for their 18 to 24 month power contract or natural gas contract, we're a trusted partner, and we've been able to deliver more than just pumping gas into their building and sending them a bill.
And you've got stickiness, and now it's not just a price war.
Right.
Yeah. You also do fuel cells, right, for some, and storage behind the meter for some customers, I believe.
We do.
Yeah.
We have an arrangement with Bloom Energy that we were marketing fuel cells, primarily New York and in California, where the market supports them. It's what, and they're mostly large national accounts that want that backup supply. Fuel cells are advancing. You know, today they're not as flexible. They can't follow load. They're up into the bus in 15 hours and then they just run flat out. It has a piece in some of our customers' needs, but if you can use a mixture of grid-generated power, fuel cells, and local DER with energy management systems, it fulfills the customer's desires.
Thank you. So let's turn our attention to the wholesale markets and your generation fleet. So we're in a withering, brutally punishing price regime right now, with fracking producing gas at all-time lows, wholesale spot market prices, what, $25 and change in ERCOT last year around the clock, and just clearing $26 in Western PJM, which is the most traded hub in the country. How do you live in a world like that when you've got generating assets selling into markets where wind has a production tax credit, solar has an ITC, and you don't have those same sorts of supports for most of your generation? I mean, yes, there's the zero emissions credits, which may or may not last past the challenges at FERC and the lawsuits and so on, but how do you move forward with those challenges?
So the current market designs are not sustainable for an all and above strategy. The way we run the grid efficiently, and have for many decades, is you have baseload power, cheap baseload power that can deliver 24/7. You have mid-merit power that is when we wake up in the morning and switch on the toaster, the TV, load starts to come up, these plants ramp up, and then in the highest days you have the peaking units that come on to take care of that nighttime peak, and then it all goes back down. When we decided that we wanted to become much cleaner in our electricity generation, the focus was on technology and jump-starting technology versus balancing a generating grid and delivery system. Today, there is no economic large-scale storage. So a megawatt produced is a megawatt consumed within seconds. It's a unique part of the production of electricity. You can store water, you can store gas, but if you're producing electricity today. Now we're doing a lot of work as a company and with other entities on trying to find that economic storage. The first one to get there will be the one with the gold ring. But what we've pushed in the past, we are the lowest cost and the largest clean generator in the country. And we believe in our environmental stewardship in what we should produce. We have no coal units, we have natural gas units, we have nuclear units, we have wind, and we have solar, hydroelectric, and pumped storage. When the government and the markets decide to pick winners and losers versus outcomes, it skews the market. You look at Texas. Texas is it's a petroleum-based state. The carbon wasn't the focus. I'm not sure what the focus is, but the overemphasis on the development of wind has destabilized this market significantly. So you're looking at companies going bankrupt, you're looking at plants shutting down, you're looking at a potential of a power shortage very soon in ERCOT because the market signals aren't there. to develop. I think we're developing the last two highly efficiency natural gas units here in Texas, and we'll have them. We're test running them now. We'll have them online. I don't know of any other plants being talked about developing, but you are hearing about plants shutting down because they can't get the right economic signals. PJM is the same thing. We've got companies that are talking about going bankrupt. We've got companies that are going through bankruptcy, and it's just not the way to design a market. So we talk about it being a competitive market. Well, the competitive market was skewed years ago when we decided we wouldn't take a load shape, a demand shape, we would incent based off of a technology, and we're all skewed right now. How do we put that back together? The simplest way is for the RTOs to, if the states want clean energy, the RTOs to put a price on carbon. We've been saying that for years, but there's a reluctance, and now with the new administration, we're not sure where this goes. So we're working with PJM, we're working with New England, New York, ERCOT on what we can do on price formation and stabilizing these current markets.
So from a system reliability issue, making sure there's enough generating adequacy, do you think we safely skate across, or is someone ultimately going to fall through the ice here and then people are going to realize this just isn't sustainable the way it's designed right now?
You hope that is not the outcome. Yeah. You hope that we don't turn parts of the country into a third world country, or what you see in the Caribbean where you've got the rolling brownouts during the day. I think we're much more sophisticated and we can work together to come up with the designs. Some areas, there is adequate capacity and units should and can come off. If you get a reserve margin of 17%, it's good if it's in the right area. What we saw in the polar vortex in 2014 is we almost lost the grid. We were very close. It was the coldest day. We couldn't, other companies could not get gas to their natural gas plants because home heating is the priority. If you were to let the pilot lights go out in New York, it'd take years to get everything back on. Mm-hmm. So home heating, it takes the priority for the pressure. We had no wind on those days. It was overcast. Coal piles were frozen. Gas plants couldn't start. The nuclear plants continued to run. So let's get the focus on reliability and capacity.
So aside from the neighbor's dog, what keeps you up at night? It sounds like it's a multiplicity of things, but what's the main thing? You mentioned weather before, but maybe, what is it that you really have to focus on all the time?
So it's not the neighbor's dog, it's my two dogs. But I believe in our company and I believe in our people, to be able to adapt change. I'm not afraid of us going into this future and really helping optimize and create what the customer wants in the future. What is the deterrent and what does bother me is the lack of knowledge in Washington and some of the state houses on how to develop the policies that support an outcome. Mm-hmm. Now, carbon has become, and clean air has become politicized. We don't know how to make the investment. We thought we were making an investment to clean up the stack to run a highly reliable, low carbon fleet. Well, that's not today, not being seen as required. So what's the investment we're making for the future, and how do we know that we don't end up with a lot of stranded assets or undermine, the balance sheet? And so I think, it's getting some kind of leadership, Department of Energy, Environmental Protection, or in the RTOs on what the states want. If the federal government cannot figure out that it wants anything besides to bicker, and the states choose they want to do something, then allow FERC, allow the RTOs to design the marketplace that adequately compensates and adequately supplies what the customers need.
If it were me, the dogs would never wake me up because I'd be up all night having to worry about all that. I've left you 4 minutes. If someone wants to come up to the mic and ask a question, we probably have time for one, and I apologize for not giving you more. Please.
Thanks. Harry Weber at Platts. I just had one quick question regarding your LNG export project down in Brownsville and what the current status of that is. You all haven't updated any timeline since October. You haven't announced any offtake agreements or preliminary agreements, and I'm just wondering if you're still planning on going forward with that, and what's the timing of FID?
Yeah, we have are still working on the investment. It's an LNG export facility. It's somewhat unique from the others. It's smaller, and so it's designed for offtake agreements that would take the whole train versus others that would go to different places. We're continuing with the permitting process. We have tightened capital on that side of the business, so we would like to get it permitted and then like to find partners and then see if the project is will be better suited in others' hands.
Time for one more.
Your Constellation Technology Ventures has made some really interesting investments, ChargePoint, SolarBridge, C3. So what are some examples of these technologies and these investments transforming the way that your regulated businesses operate? For example, owning, operating inverters, deploying electric vehicles, these kinds of things, or other types of priorities that you glean information and then you invest it in these companies and then you transfer the capabilities in operations.
So we have at the top of Constellation, Exelon, a strategy group that brings all the companies together, and we have to be careful because we have regulated on one side and competitive on the other side, but it is truly a sharing of technologies and potential uses for technologies. So more gets to go to market because we go behind the meter at Constellation, our retail and wholesale organization. As was said previously, a lot of the utility work right now stops at the meter. And we're working on that to see how we can benefit the customer, work with partners that can benefit the customer to get that technology in. Fuel cells is an example. We took a composite team, not only the Constellation folks looking at Bloom, but we looked at all fuel cell manufacturers, and that was the folks from the utilities, it's the folks from Constellation, and learned the technology. There are usage for fuel cells in large switch yards instead of transmission build-out that have been put in, and that's in the Delmarva utility. We're looking at controllers, microgrid controllers at ComEd, that research has helped the Constellation group look at how they might want to get into the microgrid business in some other areas. So trading the information back and forth, the one thing that we have had to do, and it's necessary, is really hire a whole lot more talent that allows us to understand these technologies and then work them into the businesses.
Well, we don't have time for any more. I'd like you all to join me in thanking Chris for being so generous and sharing of his thoughts.
Thank you.
Chris, thanks so much.
Thanks.
That was great.